Module 7 Architectural. Hi, Joe Cerrone. Today we're going to take a look at creating the drawing for these door panels. The drawings are located here in D2L. We can download and open that. And so it's just a textbook exercise. The door is 6 feet 8 inches by 2 feet 6 inches, and it's got the dimensions on it. So we're going to go into D2L. And we're going to download a B-size architectural title block. And we're going to open that in AutoCAD. It comes up in paper space, and so here's our title block with our title block information. And then we're going to toggle over to model space, and we're going to create that drawing. Alright, back over to model space, home tab. We have our menu bar enabled, and so we have the old AutoCAD pull down menus in addition to the ribbon in the home tab. We're going to start this off on the furniture layer, and we're going to check our settings. We'll go to Tools, Drafting Settings, Snap and Grid. Snap is enabled at 6 inches, and as you look at the drawing, 6 inches is okay. There's a few of them that we would need to have a smaller snap increment, and so what we might want to do is just dial it all the way down to half. And then we can leave the grid spacing. I would leave it at 1 foot. That's fine. Polar tracking is enabled. I like it at 15 degrees because it's the way the old drafting pencil arms used to be. Object snap settings, will enable those, and we have most of them on. We don't have on the geometric center and node, insert perpendicular and parallel, but we definitely want endpoints on. We want center points and intersections. We'll use those quite a bit. Alrighty. And we'll start off by drawing a rectangular shape for the door. And so that rectangular shape is going to be 2 feet 6 inches wide by 6 feet 8. And I prefer to draw them with the line command rather than to make rectangles. And so that's how we're going to approach this. I'll just get to a point where I can start, and then I'm going to enable my line weights so that we can see that. There we go. And then I'm going to track that out. You can see that little green line that highlights. That's our object tracking from our polar setting, and we enabled that. It's also down here in a glyph that you can turn it on and off. Things that are on are blue, and so we're going to track that out, and then we're going to type in 2'6". You don't need to put the inch mark, which would be like the quotes shown right over here. And then we're going to go track that north, and we're going to go 6 feet 8, so we can say 6 feet 8. Enter. And then you can just dynamically turn the wheel on the mouse just like you're playing a video game and continue to stay in the draw mode. And so we're still in the draw line mode. You can see it's reflecting back what the computer is doing, and then we're going to track out to the left 2 feet 6, and then we can type C for close to close that geometry, and now everything is nice and neat. We're going to use the offset command to put these little beveled features onto the drawing, and so we're going to offset 6 inches and 6 inches, and then we're going to offset 3 feet 8 inches and create this rectangular shape using the offset command. So we'll say offset, we'll type in 6 for 6 inches. Notice how the cursor changed to a small square. That's a selection prompt, and so it's a select object to offset. So we'll select this line, and then you can either go up or down, and we're going to go down, and then we're going to offset 6 inches to the right, and so we'll stay in the command. Some commands are modal. They stay and continue to allow you to use them. Other ones you'll have to go back and get every time you use it. We have 6 inches there, and then the distance from here to here looks like it's 3 feet 8 inches. And so let's go and say offset 3 feet 8, enter, and then we'll select this line and that side, and then we'll offset 6 inches. What I'll do is I'll right click, I'll say enter, right click, repeat offset 6. And that's the way CAD is kind of set up. It likes the right left mouse clicking. And then we'll offset that 1 feet 6, and if I've done it right, we'll have 6 inches left. Offset 1 foot 6, enter. And we can analyze that. You could always put a quick dimension on it. Oftentimes I'll just put a dimension on it and just erase it afterwards. Endpoint, endpoint. Yeah, that's correct. And then I'll delete it. You could also use the utilities measure, and so there's a measure distance command, and you can measure distance using an object snap, and so it tells me that that's 6 inches. So as we start to analyze these drawings and work with it, we're going to use the trim command to trim out this geometry, and trim is great. They've upgraded it. It's a lot like SolidWorks, where you can just kind of glide through these different areas you want to remove. And so I'm clicking and holding the left mouse button. You can also just click on it. That works as well. I think gliding is easier. You don't have to be as accurate. And there we go. Now we're going to offset, and this says typical, meaning it's the typical offset for all of these beveled features. And so we're going to offset 1 inch, and then we're also going to offset 1.5 inch. And it's going to give us this shape here. And so this bevel here is a little narrower than this bevel here. This one is an extra 1/2 inch. So we'll go into the offset command and we'll offset that 1 inch. Zoom in, select, and then continue. A shortcut, rather than use the trim command, is to use the fillet command with a radius of 0. And so sometimes I'll use that. I need to check the radius to make sure it's zeroed out, which it is. Otherwise I would type in 0, 0. And that to me is a little bit faster than the trim command. But it's whatever command technique works best for you, as long as the geometry is accurate. And then we're going to offset that 1.5 inches. And so we'll come back to our offset command. Say 1-1 divided by 2, or 1.5, enter, and then we're going to offset that line to the inside. And I'm going to use the fillet command again with a radius of 0. And the fillet command is one of those commands that you have to repeat. You could also use fillet multi, and then it will stay in the command. Alrighty, so that's this, and then we can go and create the line geometry. And what I'm doing is I'm right mouse clicking after I put the geometry in there, and then right mouse clicking again to repeat the command. And that's the quickest way to create that shape. We're going to do it again up here at the top, and so we'll say offset 1, enter, line to the inside, enter, and then we'll fillet those with the radius of 0. And when I talk about fillet multi, when you go to fillet, one of the options here is multiple. And so when you say multiple, you don't have to go back and retrieve the command every time you use it. Offset 1-1/2, 1.5 inches. You don't need to put the inch mark, but you can put it in if you like. And then the command will work. And so as you offset, remember you can go either up or down or left or right, depending on if it's a horizontal or a vertical line. Alrighty, a couple more lines. Make sure your O snaps are on. Remember, O snaps are right here. You can check the object snap settings if you need to. I'm just using endpoints. And so when I'm near an endpoint, I'll get this green square, and it's called a glyph. So there's my glyph, and there's another one. Now I missed on that one, so I can fix it with a grip and an endpoint. Escape to clear the grips. Alrighty, let's put the door handle, or it's actually the hole for the door. It's a 2-inch diameter located 3 feet from the bottom and then 2.5 inches from the left side. Offset 3 feet, line, side, repeat, 2-1/2. Enter. Circle command, it'll be circle diameter 2 inches. Center diameter using an O-snap intersection 2. Delete. Add a center mark. And we put the center marks on the center mark layer, which this template doesn't have. So I'm going to add a center line layer. I'm going to go to Layer Properties. And my Layer Properties panel will come up. And then what I'll do is I'll say New. And it'll name it Layer 1. I'm going to rename it Center. I'm going to make the color red. I'm going to make the line type center line, and so I'll need to load that from the list. I usually take the center 0.5. I'll make it current by clicking on it and okaying it, and now you can see that the center line type has been assigned to the center line layer color of red, and then for our line weight it should be 0.3 millimeters. And that way you have these varying levels of line weights and they're easier to read. We'll make that layer current, close this, and then we'll go to the Annotate tab. We're on the center line layer and we're going to make a center mark like that. And you can go in and zoom in on it to see how that looks. Don't forget to add the dimensions now. And so now we're going to go through and add our dimensions. And so what we'll do is go to our dimension line layer. And we'll start off at the top and we'll put on these dimensions right here. And so we'll pan over there. Here's our horizontal line dimension. And I'll zoom in. And that's kind of how you want to, you don't want to have to go to the optometrist by trying to dimension things from way far away. That's the nice thing about working on CAD, is that you can make things as big as you need to make them. And so I'm going to drop this right about here. And then I'm going to add the other dimensions. Now, I may tweak this down a little bit in the dimension scale settings in dim scale to make the dimension scale a little bit smaller or easier to read. And so on the Annotate tab, if I go down here to the dimension style, I can go and let's try and put the 125, set that current and close it and see if that will look a little bit smaller. And so let's delete that one. And then we'll reapply it. Wrong way. It's totally bigger. So let's go back to our Annotate tab and to our dimension style. Let's go back to the 25:1 and let's modify this. And what we're going to do is on the Fit tab, we're going to adjust this to half of that value. And so we're going to say 24. And okay that and close it. And then when we put in our dimensions, they should be smaller. And it's not because I have the old dimension style active on it. Yeah. So I had the dimension style for 0.125 on here, and That's not the one that I want. So if I click on it and then I go to the Home tab, on the dimensions and annotations, I can then change this to my 0.25 to 1, and it's the size that I want. So all I did was to change the dim fit tab on the annotate tab. So if you go to the annotate tab and you want to dial down the size, you can modify on the fit tab, and then we'll set that up at 1.5 equals a foot. Alright, continuing. Linear dimension, this endpoint to this endpoint, and then we'll place that. I still have the other dimension active. Another trick is to go to the match properties and then to match it back to what it should be. My palette's in the way. Alrighty, continuing. Now this time I'm going to make sure that my correct style is active, and so I'm going to select it and set that current to the 0.25. Close it. Continuing, 6-inch dimension. And then we'll put the 2 feet 6-inch dimension. Now you can place these in the center. They're a little bit large to be exact, but you can click on them and move them. And escape to clear the grips. When you dimension, you want to dimension to the endpoints of the geometry, meaning the blue lines. You don't want to grab the endpoints of the dimension lines, which it will let you do. Alright, and this is a little far from the actual part. I may bring these in a little bit closer using grips, but we're just going to go ahead and annotate the drawing or put the dimensions on. So we'll continue. And it may be best to stagger this dimension a little bit so that you know that the 3 feet 8 inches is the total height of the beveled area. It could have been 3 feet 8 inches plus 6 inches or minus, depending on how you read the print. Continuing. Distance between these two bevels is 6 inches, and then 1 feet 6. And 6 inches. Alright, let's make it look neat. So we'll come over here and we'll use grips to kind of make this look a little easier to read. Remember, when you click on a grip and it turns red, that is what's called a hot grip, and then it allows you to move that dimension to another location. And it also allows you to move the text positioning within the dimension. And then to clear the grips, you hit the escape key. Alright, we're going to add these other dimensions here across the bottom. We've got this 1 inch typical from these two outside bevels, and then 1.5 inch typical for the inside bevels. And so what we'll do to edit that is we'll double click on it, and then we move the cursor to the right, spacebar TYP, green check mark, escape, and then we can move that if we need to. We'll add the other dimension for the 1 inch or the 1.5. Endpoint, endpoint, place the dimension. And then these are kind of in reverse order if we want to have drawings that don't have overlapping dimension extension lines. These are called dimension extension lines, and the idea is that you avoid crossing over them when possible. Alright, 2.5 inches from the edge. Let's dimension how to get to the knob. We're going to bring this up a little bit along with this one. Hit escape. There's nothing that says everything has to be within the grid. The grid is just there like a piece of graph paper that you would use. Continuing, 2.5. Now here you can turn off the snap function as long as the OSnap is on, and that way I can acquire that endpoint. And then we'll place this on the other side. And then we'll add our diameter dimension. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to remove, using properties, the center mark, so it doesn't double center mark it. It's not a big deal, it's just neater. You can also make an arrowhead on this instead of a tick line with the properties. And so you can change the oblique to an arrow. Alrighty. And then we can go to the Layout tab, double click in the viewport, and then we can set that at a scale. And so we'll set that at a scale, and let's try 1/2 inch equals a foot. And it looks like we still have some more room in the drawing, and so I like to make them as big as possible to use as much of the paper. And so we're going to dial that up to the next one.